You're listening to the Free to Be Mindful podcast, which invites you along on a journey to learn of mindful living, grow in mental health, and inspire through personal growth. In a world where we can often feel much stress and overwhelm, this podcast provides bite-sized tips and real talk conversations, empowering you to embrace mindfulness and nurture your full potential. I'm your host, Vanessa de Jesus Guzman, licensed therapist, retired educator, entrepreneur, and mom of two. I'm passionate about helping busy moms reduce the overwhelm and to live life intentionally without losing their, well, here we go. Hello and welcome to episode 216 of the Free to Be Mindful podcast. I hope that you're feeling good, looking good, and doing better in this world than you were yesterday. I am so excited for our guest today because she was actually the very first guest that the podcast had on back in episode 98, where we talked about exploring your relationship with food. And this is Miss Naihomy Jerez. I'm so excited to have her on because she's such a wealth of information. And in case you didn't hear episode 198, let me remind you a little bit of who she is. So she is a certified integrative nutrition and hormone health coach and the podcast host of Wealthy Generation, well in capital letters. I love that name. Be sure to check her out. Her passion lies in teaching women of color how to use food and lifestyle to heal their body and to balance their hormones. Naihomy began her own wellness journey after giving birth to her second son, shedding 50 pounds without restrictions, maintaining her progress year after year while honoring her foodie identity. I love that. Motivated by her own transformation, she then launched her coaching business, driven by a desire to show her community that achieving health goals can be fun, can be simple, and can be sustainable. Naihomy is a Bronx raised Dominican, wife and mother of two who loves eating good food, going to gym classes, and to reggaeton concerts. She really does, and she shows it all on her social media, which I invite you to check it out. She'll share more about that a little bit later on. So I invited Naihomy back on the podcast because October is known as World Menopause Month. And actually, October 18th, a couple days after this episode is being released in real time, is known as World Menopause Day. And Naihomy talks a lot about perimenopause, and it's starting to get talked about a little bit more. I remember this past summer, Halle Berry was on Good Morning America talking about menopause, and I'm just so glad that it is because it's something that people should know about, men and women alike, so that men know how to support women and women know how to support each other. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Naihomy, welcome back. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me again, Vanessa. It's a pleasure to always be back on the Free to Be Mindful podcast.
Yeah, and I just said in the intro how you are our first guest, and I'm so happy to have you back. And today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, but still related to what you talked about the first time, which is your relationship with food and how we can help our kids with their relationship with food. But today we're focusing in on women only. The kids, we left them at home. But before we get into that, and we're laughing if you're viewing this on YouTube because we were just talking about our kids because we have boys around the same age. But before we get into all of that, let's reintroduce you to people out there in case they didn't catch episode 98 where you were first on. We've come a long ways. Now we're in the 200s. So tell us a little
Wow.
bit about yourself.
Congratulations, by the way, on
Thank
200
you.
episodes. That's awesome. Hi, friends. My name is Naihomy Jerez. I am a food and hormone health coach. I teach women of color how to use food and lifestyle to heal their bodies and balance their hormones while also living your best life. Like
Mm.
Vanessa said, I'm a mom of two. I'm Dominican. I grew up in the Bronx. And what else is exciting and fun? I like reggaeton concerts. So,
You
yeah.
sure do. And I said, I love the way that you always like put them on your gram because I'm like jamming along with you, but you're actually live there and I'm just on the other side of the screen. That's awesome. You fly out to places to go to these concerts.
I just one time
Okay.
because just once because on Bad Bunny's last tour, he was performing in Las Vegas on my actual 38th birthday. So I'm like, that sounds so much fun. Let's go to Vegas to the concert. So That's what happened.
That is fun. I will share with you. I don't remember what number it was, but it was in the mid 30s. J-Lo was having her Vegas residency, and my
Yes.
husband was out there for a work trip. So I actually left work early, got on a plane, went to her concert, and it was the longest birthday ever because of the time change.
Oh,
So I feel
yeah.
like that was like the longest time I got to celebrate. And J-Lo was singing to me, or so I thought, because she was like right there. I would almost touch her because we were so close. And it was so much fun. So I'm sure Bad Bunny was just as fun.
It is fun. I actually saw that JLo residency too. So I guess twice I have flown out.
So cool. So cool. All right. So now we just shared 30s and now we're women of a certain age, I guess people say, but I don't mind sharing. By the time this airs, I am 42 years old with a 10, nope, by the time this airs, 42 years old with an 11-year-old and a I don't know, 5 month old or 4 month old or so, which sounds bananas, which is why my hormones are probably all over the place, which is why I'm so eager to get into this conversation. But we are around the same age, I would say, correct?
Yeah, I'm 38 and a half.
Okay, I'm a little older. Okay.
I feel like the half matters now again. It matters a lot when you're a kid, and now it matters as well.
Yeah, because you're like, I'm not quite there. Just wait, give me a moment,
Yeah.
give me a moment. So more and more menopause is more in the conversation. I mentioned in the intro how this past summer Halle Berry was just on Good Morning America talking about menopause. And I love it because I feel that men and women should both know about it so that we can support, men can support women and women can support each other because it shouldn't be like talking about your menstrual cycle back in the 50s where it was just a hush hush type of thing because people all go through it. I wouldn't say all. Mostly, how does that even work? Like, does everybody go through a perimenopause and menopause stage?
Yeah, and just to bring in like some definitions,
Yes.
there's in women, right? We have different seasons hormonally, and there's the premenstrual stage when we're girls, then we menstruate, and the menstrual years are the longest ones. And then there's the start of perimenopause because that's when our eggs start to decline,
Mm.
and that's the shift that starts to happen when we no longer are ovulating as often. And there are shifts happening in our hormones. So that is between now, starting at about 35 years old, there
Oh,
starts
wow.
to, yeah, be hormone shifts. And then the approximate age of menopause, which is just one moment in time where you are period free for a whole year. That can
Mm.
be start and stop for a lot of women because sometimes they don't have a period for 3 months and then they have a period again. So the countdown starts for that full year mark again. So it's just that one day where you're period free for 1 year. And after that is considered post menopause. So every female goes through this process. The difference might be the symptoms are very individual to each person, but every female will experience these different stages unless something happens like a hysterectomy or something medical that there is an abrupt hormone shift at the moment for some medical reason.
The things that we go through in life.
Yes, it is wonderful being a woman.
There are a lot of pluses, but as I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, oh my goodness. And let's get into the symptoms a little bit because I
Yeah.
won't say my mom's age. She's not as comfortable as saying her age as I am. But she's in her 60s and I see her like she gets the flashes and it's so hot
Mhm.
and then she's melting. She's not sleeping well. And at first, and it was odd because it would like come and go, right? Like sometimes she would have them, sometimes she wasn't having them, and then she had them consistently for a while. So I guess that goes,
Mhm.
with what you were saying with that time span. But at first I was like, come, like stop it. Like drink a glass of water, you'll be fine. But now the more and more I'm becoming educated on it, I'm like, oh no, she's going through something. So let's
Yeah.
talk about some of these symptoms that people feel, let's say perimenopause, are they the same during the menopause actual stage?
Yeah, one of the symptoms intensify as we get older because the less ovulatory cycles that we have, the more our hormones are shifting.
Okay.
So the thing is that the two hormones that are at play here is estrogen and progesterone. They are the ones that help us have a menstrual cycle. They're the ones that help us ovulate. But the truth is that they also help with a lot of other processes in the body, like controlling our body temperature, helping with processing sugar is not just insulin. So, and it helps with our gut health. Like it plays a role in every other bodily function as well. So when our hormones start to glitch, as I like to call it, they're like in and out, they're a little
Mm.
fuzzy, then not just our menstrual cycle is suffering, all of the other processes in our bodies is also suffering. So the harder and longer the glitches are, the more symptoms or the stronger symptoms we might feel. But starting off in perimenopause, some symptoms that are common that we probably don't even notice is changes in the length of our menstrual cycle. For
Okay.
example, my normal cycles before used to be 26 to 28 days, around there. Now they're like 23 to 25 days, which is awful. But that simple little change in numbers that we might not pay attention to is a sign of things shifting. The length of your
Wow.
cycle, the heaviness or lightness of it, those are just signs that things are shifting. Also, there are certain aches and pains. There are changes in your blood work, like your blood
Mm.
sugar might be a little bit different, your cholesterol might be a little bit different. And you're like, wait a second, like I haven't changed anything of how I'm eating, I'm exercising and all that. Why are these numbers changing? So those are little signs as well. And one of the most popular ones is the hot flashes because
Yes.
our body kind of loses the ability to control our body temperature. There is the signs that our brain is getting about how our skin is feeling and the temperature of our skin and being able to cool off. It's like when there's a fire drill.
Uh-huh.
It's like a fire drill and it's putting out fires all the time and just rushing from one thing to another in trying to control your body temperature in your body. So that's why there's like you're extremely hot and then you're extremely cold because the messages hormonally are a little delayed.
Oh
Or
my
they're a little
goodness.
delayed in the body. And then it's extreme, then it's too much. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're hot. Here, cool off, cool off. So then you start sweating. And then you're too cool. And it's like, wait, we need to bring the temperature back up.
Well, we'll get into the what you can do, but it really just has a hard time with the messaging and the
Yes,
regulating of what's happening inside.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh boy. So we talked about hot flashes. We talked about maybe the change in cycle, the change in blood work, anything else that we should look out for so that we can know, like, things are changing, something's happening.
There's a humongous list of different kinds of symptoms. Those are oftentimes the common ones, but oftentimes too, there's like random itching that's happening. Like people
Oh.
get really itchy in their skin and they don't know why. They feel like something's crawling on their skin. Their sleep is a little off. Their hunger levels are off. Like there's just different things that starts to change where you're like, wait a second, I wasn't like this before, or you experience pain. Like there's this thing called stiff shoulder and you have more joint pain. So if you're noticing that something is a little bit different and you're in that age range, I would get curious about it because the symptoms, there's like a whole page of different symptoms that people can experience and they can look different for everybody.
If you're watching this on YouTube and you're seeing my face, Naomi, I don't know if you noticed because you're going through these
Yeah.
things and I'm like, check, 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 which makes sense with the age. However, because I just had a baby, I'm always like, well, wait, where am I? Like, I just had a baby, but
Mhm.
I'm also in the age of perimenopause. How is that going to play out? Is it going to make things better or is it going to make things worse? And I guess we'll just have to find out and see.
Yeah, it's a wait and see game. There are ways to like help our bodies through the process, but yes, it is a wait and see game sometimes. And the symptoms can be confused for other things.
Mm.
Like sometimes you're just really tired or you did make a change or you're overwhelmed. Like it can be a delicate line to walk where it's like, oh, this is purely perimenopause, or you just really have had changes in your life.
Right, right. And I wanted to point out when you said we have to be really aware, I like to tie everything that goes back into mindfulness and mindful living because, like I always say, it's not meditating off on a cloud for 30 minutes, just being aware of the changes that are happening to your mind and to your body. That also falls into the mindful living framework. So, being
Mhm.
really mindful, not pun intended, but pun intended, really being mindful of what is it that's happening? Like, let me write things down if I'm going to forget. Did this happen yesterday? Did it happen last week? Just so that you can really start keeping your eye out for patterns, which can be really difficult because we all lead very full lives. And sometimes,
Mhm.
whether it's really exciting things or really stressful things, they can fog our memory a little bit or just kind of like, when did this happen again? But it seems like this is going to be really important. And tell us, Naihomy, if we notice the signs within this perimenopause stage, these symptoms, then what can we begin to do if we indeed notice that these things are beginning to take place?
Yeah, great question. And brain fog is another sign and symptom of perimenopause. So there you go. Thank you
Check.
for bringing it up. Check. Um, So I'll say this, what you can start, I would not wait for you to feel symptoms of perimenopause. I feel like you can really help yourself way before that because the foundation that you need for supporting your hormones is just across the board what you would need at any stage in your life, especially in your menstruating years where you're getting your period. There's still a lot of things that can go wrong, or maybe not wrong, but shifts that can happen that can really affect how you're feeling. There's a ton of different symptoms that you can have, or different kinds of diagnoses like PCOS or estrogen dominance, or not getting a period at all. So there are many hormone imbalances too in our menstruating years that if we start with these tips that I'm about to share, they're going to be super helpful in your perimenopause transition as well. Although there are specific tweaks that we can make in perimenopause to help not only symptoms, but to help retain our lean muscle mass, which is
Okay.
extremely important. That also helps protect our bones because the more into perimenopause we get and postmenopause, one of the main concerns is bone density
And osteoporosis?
and osteoporosis and all that. And a lot of women actually have their quality of life impacted because they get fractures so easily, and all of a sudden they can't move as well, or they can't function as well, or can't even recover. So oftentimes one of the main causes of death or of like being in a nursing home is these fractures that we get because of poor bone density, and we no longer have lean muscle mass to help us. So implementing a lifestyle shift, even in your menstruating years, can be super impactful for when we're in our 60s and 70s and how we want to live our life. So I want you to think that far ahead because it's been proven by science that after age about 35, we start to lose about 1% of lean muscle mass a year. So it's
Wow.
very important to protect that, not just for our muscles, but for our bones, our balance, all that good
Everything.
stuff.
Yeah. And as
Yeah.
you're talking, my mom recently just fell and she actually
Oh,
fractured her funny
oh
bone,
no.
whatever actual
Yeah, I
name
don't know
that
what it
bone
is.
is. It's a fracture. So as you're talking about like falling and fracturing all these things, and she's at that age, it happens. And it's like you said,
Hmm.
if it's based in science and we know that these things are going to happen, why not implement these things far before they actually happen? Not just, it sounds like, to help everything, but also just to lead a healthy lifestyle. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, to lead a healthy lifestyle and longevity, I like to think, how do I want to be living my life? I want to be
Mm.
ready for whatever adventures possible. I don't want to limit myself to the adventures or how whatever I want to do because my physical body can no longer support me. right? So if friends are like, let's go hiking, if I have grandkids or whatever it is, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to go hiking. I want to be able, let's not even go that far, just do things in my home
Yeah.
where I don't need assistance, like reaching over my head, climbing a ladder, grabbing my maleta, like lifting your luggage. Traveling is a whole like exercise routine,
Yes.
right? With pushing and pulling and
Yes.
lifting and so if you think about that, I want to be physically able to do these things so that I can fully enjoy my life.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. What are some of these things that
Let's
we
get
can start
into
doing
it.
now?
So, a few things that we can start doing now is number one, paying attention to what we're eating and really cutting down on ultra processed foods that usually contain a lot of sugar and a lot of added ingredients that just cause our body to clean up after itself.
Mm,
So, that's number one, just paying attention to the quality. Number two is creating a good balance on your plate that's very protein forward, fiber
okay.
forward, hopefully with vegetables where and healthy fats. So something you want to have on your plate is the healthy fats, something like avocado, a complex carbohydrate, whether it's a grain or a starch, let's say plátanos, yuca,
Sweet
or
potatoes.
rice, sweet potatoes, things like that. A clean protein, whether that's grass-fed beef, chicken, shrimp, so a variety of those things, eggs and vegetables, right? Whatever the
Okay.
vegetable is of your choice that doesn't fall into the carb category. So creating that balance in your plate will help create more balance in your body.
Okay. And before you go on to the next tip, I always hear
Yeah.
that we need to eat more protein than what we actually think is enough.
Yes. Yes. So I would say anywhere a specific formula to calculate your protein intake,
Mhm.
especially if you're exercising. But usually you want your snack to be anywhere between 15 to 20 grams of protein. And by snack, I mean a nutritious snack too. It's not
Okay.
like ice cream and cookies. I consider those treats. I'm like,
Okay.
what's your favorite snack? They're like, ice cream. I'm like, no,
Thanks
that's a
for the
treat.
differentiation.
Yes. So that looks like, let's say, Greek yogurt or cheese sticks or toast with peanut butter, something like that. It will help you feel full. It will provide some protein for you, some fiber, which is very, very needed. So it's for an actual meal, I would recommend, or it's recommended anywhere between 30 to 40 grams of protein. So
Okay.
sometimes when I tell my clients, like, you should increase it to at least 3 eggs, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so much food. But in reality, that's not even enough protein for one meal because that's just
Wow.
18 grams of protein and 3 eggs. Each egg is approximately
Okay.
6 grams. So I tend to add some sausages on the side or something else or extra egg whites, but it is assumed like, oh my gosh, this is so much food. But the truth is that we just undereat a lot. We don't eat enough protein. Our meals are very carb
Carb.
forward,
Yeah.
which carbs are great and we need them and we need to eat them. However, it's important to eat them in a certain way for it not to keep spiking our blood sugar. So
Got it.
creating more of a protein forward, vegetable forward balance in our plate can be super useful.
I like that you gave the example of the 3 eggs because I'll be really honest, numbers scare me. So when you're like this many grams or that many grams, like, I don't know how many things grams have, and nor am I really interested in like really weighing things and looking at the labels. But when you say
Yeah.
like, these many eggs or like it should look like this amount on your plate, that makes it a little bit more real and more sticky so that we remember to do that.
Yes, absolutely. And looking at nutrition labels can be helpful, especially for single serve things like a yogurt cup can have about 18 grams in one little yogurt cup or a cottage cheese cup. And yes, there is the measuring style where you can use measuring cups or a food scale or different things like that. But normally it's pretty okay if also you use, let's say, the palm of your hand, the inside. That's also kind of a good measuring tool if you're just starting off. You don't need to go into the fancier or more elaborate ways of measuring food. If you look at the palm of your hand and the serving kind of looks like that, then it's pretty safe to say you're getting enough.
Okay, I'll take it. What's your
Yeah.
next tip?
Exercise, please. And it's not just, this is one of the best ways to protect your muscle mass, as I was
Mm,
saying before. And the protein tip is super important because your muscles cannot strengthen and your muscles cannot grow
without.
without you feeding your muscles. We need to give it the tools that it need. And if we don't, if we're exercising and not feeding them appropriately, they actually consume themselves and they break
Mm,
down. And that's something that you don't want to happen because we're trying to protect the muscle mass. We're not trying to do away with it even faster than it's naturally happening.
right.
So I would recommend a good balance as well of exercise. If you're a runner and if you're just doing cardio, is not going to be a long-term strategy for your health and protecting your bones and your muscles because you need good armor and structure around your bones for the impact and all that. I'm not saying not to do it is great, but we also need to add in strength work and
Yes.
resistance work and what's called like progressive weight overload. We want to
Mm,
build up those muscles so that you can run more effectively, so that your bones are more protected. We want to add in balance work because we lose our balance a lot if our
yeah.
muscles are not strong enough as well. If you're a runner, you're on one leg often, so and it causes more pain because your bones start to move everywhere. Your body is not as strong to keep it all together. So here you are cycling, here you are running, and this is all you want to do, and then you find yourself in pain and you really don't know why, and oftentimes it's because your body's not strong enough to hold you for
Right.
that long and that type of activity.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Humpty Dumpty. Then you fall, have a great fall, and it's hard to
Yeah.
put the pieces back together again. And that's something that we hear when we hear workout. I don't know if we're just conditioned as kids or if it's just me, but you always think the running, the biking, the
Mm-hmm.
cardio. But it's so
Mm-hmm.
important as we progressively age to do more and more of that weightlifting, which doesn't mean we're going to come out looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Which
No.
it means that we're going to strengthen our muscles so that we can keep it all together as we age.
Yeah, it's actually super hard to look bulky as women if there's like, then you really need to go and measure your food and be super strict and all that. So, women that you see that are very muscular or they're competing at, let's say, bodybuilding competitions,
Mhm.
that's a full job. They have a lot of strategy and work that they put into to create that type of physique. If
Right.
you're just, eating more protein and doing just regular old strength training and things like that, then you're really not going to look that way. You're actually going to get the results you want more. A lot of people want to
Yes.
look lean, they want to look, curvy or whatever, like less of a belly, and that will give you those kinds of results. You're not going to look super muscular.
Yes. And I want to point out that you also said that balance work. So whether it's through yoga, whether it's through Pilates, whether it's even through dancing, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
balance work there so that we can come with that lean physique and, not just doing that one thing. So it sounds like just having a versatile workout routine. And I'm assuming maybe finding things that are fun that are also a workout, but you don't think about it as a workout. For me, I think about it like going salsa dancing because you're working out but you're not in that mindset of like, I got to go do this thing that I don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's always a favorite, and then it's doing that favorite and thinking that everything else that you do that might not be a favorite is
Mm,
to help you continue doing your favorite effectively.
I love that.
Yeah. And then I do have two more things that are super important during perimenopause, and it's sleep and stress management.
I, I can't help but laugh at those two things because as women, as moms, as humans, I mean, we stress out more, so we have to do more things. So we want to watch more Netflix to de-stress, but then we're not getting enough sleep, and it's almost like
Yeah.
a never-ending cycle. So they're so
Yes.
important, but it's the things that typically fall to the bottom of the pile.
Yeah, I think that building mindfulness, again, no pun intended, but
Hmm.
yeah, really expanding your toolbox of stress management and
Yes.
what stress looks like for you and how to create safety in your body throughout the day and stressful moments. Because the truth is that you, yes, are stressed out and there's a lot of things that we cannot control. But it's also true that most likely you're also really safe in your body at the moment. So
Mm,
teaching your body the difference and just regulating your nervous system, even if you have strong emotions of being stressed and overwhelmed, can be really helpful for your hormones because we don't want cortisol to be in the party all the time,
right.
and managing your sleep and creating a nice sleep hygiene for yourself can also help really balance your hormones and just give your body what it needs, the repair, the detoxification, the rest, to really be able to be productive the next day and to feel alert and to help. There's a lot of hormone activities that happen when you wake up, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of hormone activities happening when you're going to sleep. So the more you support them, the better you're going to feel. Because then what ends up happening is that we try and course correct throughout the day. So here we go, drinking tons of coffee. We need a ton of naps. We lean on alcohol. We're drinking a ton of melatonin. Like we try and just patch up the leaky holes
Right.
throughout
Try
the
to catch
day.
up.
Yes. Whereas if we just paid a little bit more attention and we learned how to eat, to manage our stress, to exercise, then we wouldn't need all of the extra external supports that we think are needed to help
Right.
us feel better.
Yes, and that we think are supportive and sometimes really work against us. And that
Yes.
again goes into that mindful living framework, which sleep is a part of it, right? Obviously, like coping strategies and getting your body and your mind out of that fight, flight, or freeze and really into an area where you can function every day without feeling that stress and overwhelm. That's so necessary because it not only impacts your mind, but it impacts your body. And then women at this stage, it impacts you even more, especially as you continue to age. And I can't help but plug myself here because just because
Yes.
it really fits. I have the 120 coping skills on my site. You can go on any page and you'll probably get it. And then you'll get video series to support you on how to not only help you for your kids, but also to help for yourself. And this can also help when it comes again in this stage of life that Naomi's talking about. So make sure you check that out in the show notes too.
That's awesome. I think it's a very valuable resource. Go get it.
Thank you. All right. So does that kind of put a cap on the tips that you feel are important for women in this stage of life?
Yeah, I think so. I think starting there, trust me, there's a lot more things that we can do and go
Right.
deeper and all that. But I do find that too much at once is overwhelming, and trying to change too many things at once is overwhelming.
Hmm.
So let's say you're hearing all this and you're like, oh my God, I need to change everything. I would just focus, let's say, on getting Vanessa's resource, learning more on how to manage stress, and starting, let's say, in the morning, right? And one major tip is having protein before your coffee,
That's
right? And
hard,
getting,
but yes.
I know it's hard, and getting some sunlight and just
Mm,
starting there, just picking one place that feels the least amount overwhelming for you and just build up, right? So that's what I would say. It will support you and help you shift the way you're feeling, not only in your body, but in your mind and your energy. And then it will allow you to keep adding on to that.
yes, I love that you said that because just as with, when I share mindfulness tips, it's really not hard stuff. This is not rocket science. You don't need to like move all the heavens to make this happen. Getting a little bit of sunlight, eating some protein, getting a new strategy or skill that's going to help you feel better. Whatever it
Mhm.
is, baby steps, taking little steps at a time. The thing is that we need to be intentional about
Yes.
wanting to make the change and then implementing this change. And if you try to do all the things at once, you're going to tap out by the end of the week. But little by little, one step at a time, try it out for, even if it's trying it out for one thing a month, and then the next month you focus on the next thing. By the end of the year, imagine the positive change that it'll be, not only for your physical self, but also for your mental self that we really want to protect and keep, all together as much as we can as we age. So these were wonderful tips to keep in mind.
Yes, I'm glad they're helpful.
Yay. And Naomi, quickly tell us how you implement as a health and wellness coach. I mean, it's obvious to me, but just in case when women work with you, how you kind of implement these things, how you help women throughout the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I help women in one-on-one coaching. And one of the first things we do is, or I do, is I take basically a health questionnaire with them and really identify what their symptoms are, what their challenges are, how they've been able to help themselves or not in the past. And then we start with what I like to call the lowest hanging symptoms or group of symptoms that we can address to make the biggest impact, right? So oftentimes people just think that we work on just food and exercise, but the truth is that if you are very stressed out, if you don't know how to rest or you're not resting, it's really hard to implement food and exercise when you're exhausted and when you don't feel safe in your body. So we take a holistic approach as to how you're feeling and what your needs are, and then start plugging in those holes with lifestyle and with food and exercise and everything that's kind of builds you from basically the bottom up or your foundation up so that you can start to live that life that you really want to live, where you have the mental clarity, the energy, and you physically feel really well in your body.
That sounds so good. And I have to share with you because I don't know if you know this, and I'm not going to say a name, but I have a friend who said, I really needed to balance out my hormones. She goes, I worked with your friends. I heard her on your podcast, Naomi. And I was like, yes, yes, she's fantastic. She goes, I balance out my hormones and I'm finally pregnant. That it just helped
Yes.
in her journey. And that made me so,
Yes.
so happy. And then it made me happy that it was you who helped her. So I know that your work definitely helps and it's making a difference. And I just thank you for what you do and everything that you put out there because whether it's like just your entertaining Instagram or your fantastic newsletters that are always filled of a wealth of information and then you go further on the podcast it's really helping women out at any stage. So thank you
Mhm.
for everything that you're doing. So
Oh,
with that
thank
being
you.
said, my pleasure. What would you like to be remembered for in life?
Ooh, making an impact in generational health for our
Mm,
community.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, not just the right here, right now, but generationally, because that's how we really
Yes,
make a difference, not only for ourselves, but for our family here and our family to come.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. And all these wonderful resources, where can people find you?
Yes, please come follow me on Instagram at Naihomy Jerez. You can go on my website to grab free resources. One of my favorite resources that are on there is my ultimate clean grocery list. As I said in the beginning, the fruit products and quality and ingredients that you're using on a regular basis really make a huge impact in our health. So I've gathered my favorite food products from Whole Foods, Costco, BJ's, and they're all in picture form and links there for you.
I love
So
it.
yeah, so go ahead and grab that. You can also listen to my podcast called Wealthy Generation. That's WELLTHY. And there I dive deeper in all things women's health and hormones and give a ton of tips. You can sign up for my newsletter, like Vanessa said, that also goes out. And if you are interested in working one on one together to heal through food and lifestyle, you can go ahead and also book a consultation through links in my bio and my website.
Awesome. And we are going to put all of these links and all of this information in the show notes so that you don't miss out on all of the wonderful things that Naomi has to offer. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
again,
you.
for enlightening us.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
I truly just love on a personal note talking to Naomi because the conversations are so easy and free flowing, and she is just a wealth of information. So definitely make sure you go into the show notes, that you check out all the links. She shares so much information that then when you get to work with her, because of all the free information you've already gotten, it just takes that work to a higher level, and it's so, so worth your time. So for our guided meditation today, I'd like to bring a challenge thought to you. We often say mindfulness is paying attention to the right here and right now, to being where your feet are. However, that doesn't mean that we don't plan for the later. And if we want to live a healthy lifestyle, a physical healthy, mentally healthy, socially and emotionally healthy, that does take some planning now for later. So take a moment right now, because sometimes we hear information and it bounces off our minds. We say that was sounded good, and then we forget. Take a moment right now and make an intention for yourself. Pick one thing that you heard that you can implement for the next 4 weeks. And if you do that every so often and you do it consistently with fidelity, and if you mess up, just get yourself right back on track, then by the end of 12 months or by the end of a calendar year, you will feel much better about yourself, which will help you lead much more fulfilling lives. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Free to Be Mindful podcast. And remember, in a world where you are free to be anything that you want to be, you are always free to be mindful. Catch you next time. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. It would mean a ton if you took this moment to review the Free to Be Mindful podcast on the platform you catch your favorite shows. That quick and easy act lets me know what you enjoy, and it helps others find the podcast too. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you can listen along next week. In the meantime, I welcome you to catch me on social media at Counselor V de Jesus. And as always, remember, in a world where you are free to be anything that you want to be, you are always free to be mindful. Catch you next week.